Hi, today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do some of the finishing techniques for the heartless top. So I'm going to be showing you how to do the I-cord edging around the heart cutout on the top, as well as the ribbed neckline folded over brim. As you can see, this is what the finished object is going to look like. Within the heart I-cord, there is wire, and I'm going to show you guys how you can put that wire in. It is not required, but it is strongly recommended that you include wire in your top. It's really going to help hold the heart in place and make it look like an actual heart cutout as opposed to just being kind of like a gaping hole in the center of your chest. So as you can see, this is what the finished object is going to look like, and I'm going to bring over my top that is not completed. So as you can see, this top doesn't have any of the finishing techniques that I did on that first top. It does not yet have the I-cord edging around the heart. It also does not have the armhole edging or the neck edging. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to do the I-cord edging on the heart as well as the neck line edging. I'm not going to be showing you guys the edgings on the armholes because I feel like there's already sufficient tutorials out there on that, and I will link some of the tutorials down below. Hey guys, quick note from Editing Emma here. I know in this video I'm showing you guys how to do the I-cord edging on the heart first, and then I'm showing you how to do the neckband. However, I would actually recommend doing the opposite and following the order that is given in the pattern, which is to do the edging on the neckband first, followed by the armhole edging, and then finally followed by the I-cord edging on the heart. This is because if you use wire in your heart cutout, which as I mentioned is strongly recommended, it's just going to make doing the elements a little bit trickier, and so it's a little bit easier to do the opposite ordering. So do as I say, not as I do. I'll have chapters in the video so you can skip ahead to the neckband instructions and then come back here. We're gonna go ahead and start with the I-cord edging around the heart cutout. So obviously you're going to need the yarn that you used for the rest of the top. I actually think it'd be really fun if you did a contrast color for the I-cord edging as well, but whatever yarn you choose is going to be the same DK weight that you used for the rest of the top. So you'll need that. You will need some wire. As you can see here, this is the wire I'm using. It is galvanized steel wire, and the gauge is 20. And you will also need a needle. This is just going to be the same size needle that you used for the majority of the pattern, which is size 5 US. And I would also recommend getting a needle that has a very short cable for this, because you're going to be doing I-cord, which means you'll be kind of slipping the stitches all around the needle, and it's going to just be a little bit easier if you have a needle with a shorter cord. So we're gonna go ahead and get started on the I-cord edging. The first thing you're going to do is just cast on 3 stitches. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start at the bottom of the heart and then go all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and start by picking up a single stitch in the bottom of the heart. So we're going to go ahead, pick up a stitch, and knit. So at this point you have 4 stitches on your needle, and now what we're going to do is we want to go back to the start of this I-cord and start knitting from the right side. With that being said, however, if you are putting a wire in your work, which again, as I mentioned, is highly recommended, this is the point where you need to start threading the wire into the I-cord, because essentially how it works is we're going to be knitting the I-cord around the wire, so we need to start off with the wire at the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out a bit of my wire here. Ideally you want to have a little bit more pulled out than you'd actually need to go around the entire heart cutout, just because it's easier to have a little bit more and have a little bit of extra that you'll then cut off, as opposed to sort of trying to push the wire through if you don't have enough to begin with. But that being said, it's not going to be a huge deal if you don't pull out enough to begin with, so don't worry about it too much. But what we're going to do is we want this to be right next to our I-cord here. So you're going to put it to the right of your stitches and with the working yarn underneath. So then let's go ahead and start doing the I-cord edging. How this is going to work is you're going to go ahead and pull the stitches over to the other side of the cable. And with this working yarn behind the wire, you're going to go ahead and start knitting those stitches. So what we're going to do here is actually we're going to knit 2 of these stitches. Again, making sure to pull that yarn around the wire. Knit 2 stitches. And then how we do an I-cord edging is we're going to knit these 2 stitches together through the back loop. So I'll do that. Next up, we're going to pick up a new stitch along the edge of the heart. And what I do for the most part is I'm going to pick up 1 stitch in every single row or every single stitch once we get along this section that has been bound off. Except for there are a couple of spots where I am going to pick up fewer or more stitches, but I will explain those when we get to them. So at this point, you're just going to go ahead and pick up a stitch in the next row after the first one that you picked up a stitch in. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this stitch up, and we're going to knit that. Now we're gonna go ahead and keep repeating this process. So next thing we're gonna do is we're going to slide the stitches back to the right side of the needle. And now when we knit this next row, again, we need to make sure that the working yarn is behind the I-cord. So essentially with each row of the I-cord you're doing, you're gonna go ahead and move that working yarn behind the I-cord. And then we're gonna just keep repeating that process. So I'll keep showing it to you guys a couple more times to make sure that you have an idea of what's going on here. We're gonna go ahead and make sure that working yarn is behind the I-cord. And we're going to knit 2 stitches. Then we're going to knit 2 together through the back loop. And we're going to pick up a stitch and knit. Again, we're going to move the stitches to the right side of the needle. Take this working yarn and put it behind the wire that we have out. Go ahead and knit 2. Knit 2 together through the back loop. So as you can see, it's not the most fun experience to work with this wire just constantly behind me. It just makes things a little bit trickier, but I promise you guys it is going to really make the heart cutout look a lot better in the end. So it is going to be worth the extra effort that it takes to put this wire inside the I-cord. All right, and then we're going to pick up another stitch. So this is the essential process of how we're going to make this applied I-cord edging. I'm gonna do a bit more and then come back and show you guys what I have. So I just wanna give you guys a bit of an update on how the I-cord edging is going so you can see kind of what we're doing with this technique. As you can see, I've done a few rows of this I-cord edging, and what I wanna show you guys is that you can turn this I-cord around, and as you can see, the I-cord is going to go completely around, and how this works is that the wire is actually going to be encased in this I-cord. And that is because we're making sure on each round that we take the working yarn and we bring it around the wire as opposed to not bringing around the wire, because if you don't bring it around the wire, that wire is going to be exposed as opposed to being encased in the I-cord edging. So make sure you do that. Another quick tip, a couple of things here. I will show you guys a little bit more when I get to this point, but there are a couple of points on the heart where you want to change the number of stitches or rows that you are knitting into. The first one is going to be on either side of the heart. You see there are these 2 parts of the heart where we are just doing straight knitting and we aren't actually binding off or decreasing stitches as opposed to what we're doing here, which is decreasing stitches on the heart. So when you go into or out of these areas of straight knitting, I actually recommend skipping one of the rows. What this is going to do is going to give the edges of your heart a more rounded effect and make it look more like an actual heart. So I would recommend skipping one of the rows and not picking up stitches in one of the rows, going in or out of this section. The next one is going to be at the actual points of the heart. So this point here with the top of the heart, as well as the point at the bottom of the heart, you're going to want to do extra stitches within each of these points. That's going to actually make it look like a heart again, because it's going to actually create points in the heart where they are supposed to be. So I will come back when I'm knitting into each of these sections and show you guys exactly what that looks like. I'm at the point where the heart is switching into just straight knitting. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to skip picking up one row. So instead of picking up into this stitch, which is the next row that I'm supposed to pick up into, I'm just going to go ahead and skip that stitch and go into this stitch instead. That is what I mean by skipping a row. And that's just going to make the heart look a little bit better. I forgot to mention it earlier, but there are also these sections of straight knitting, as in just stitches that have been bound off at the top of the heart. So when you're transitioning into these bind off sections that are just straight across, you will again want to do the same thing that I mentioned for the sides of the heart, which is that you just want to skip one stitch or one row, as opposed to what you would normally pick up when you're transitioning in or out of it. Okay, this is the last tip that I have for you guys for the process of doing the I-cord edging. The last thing is, once you get to the very top of the heart, you can't really see because I already started knitting into it, but I'm right at the very top of the heart. I would recommend picking up 3 to 4 extra stitches in just that very top corner of the heart, and that's going to help to actually form the top part of the heart and make it so that it has a little bit of a point as opposed to just being totally rounded. That's really important. You're also going to do the same thing in the bottom of the heart, and that's what's going to actually give this a little bit more of a heart shape as opposed to just being a lot more rounded and difficult to identify as a heart. Okay, as you can see, we're now in the end stages of doing this heart. I have knit the I-cord edging all the way around the heart, and I have also bound off. And as you can see, I now have 2 ends of wire coming out of the heart. I have this end from the start, which goes back to my packaging, and then I have this end which is at the end of the applied I-cord that I knit. So what we're going to do at this point is we want to take these 2 ends and cut them a bit shorter and then wrap them around the opposite side of the heart. This is just going to make it so that the wire in the heart is not going to be poking you while you are wearing it. If worst comes to worst and the wire somehow gets loose, you can definitely take out this entire applied I-cord edging and redo it, and it's only going to take you, you know, the same amount of time that it took you to do the I-cord edging in the first place, which for me was maybe like 30 minutes, but definitely we want to avoid that. We want to avoid being poked by the wire. So what I'm going to do, I have some wire cutters here, is I'm going to cut both of these ends a bit shorter. I'll probably cut them to be like 1/2 inch or so. And then we're just going to go ahead and wrap those ends around the opposite side of the heart and just make sure that it's really nicely secured so that the wire is not going to be poking you. And keep in mind that after we do this, we're going to go ahead and secure together the I-cord edging so that it looks like one nice continuous I-cord edging around the heart. So I'll go ahead and do that. Cut this. And I actually might want to cut that a bit shorter just to make sure that we can wrap the entire thing. So we'll cut it here. There we go. Obviously it goes without saying, but be careful when you do this not to cut your knitting or your yarn or anything. And then I will show you this first example of how I'm going to wrap the heart. So let's kind of just peel this I-cord back a little bit. And then we're going to take this end and wrap it around the other one. It also might be helpful to have some pliers to help you bend the 2 pieces of wire around each other. So if you guys can see, I have 1 piece of wire wrapped around the other right now. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it a tiny bit shorter, but otherwise that's what I'm going to do on the other side as well. Once you've got the 2 ends of the wire wrapped around each other, there's a separate tutorial that I found on how to sort of attach the 2 ends of this I-cord to make it look like one continuous piece. So I will link to that down below. There is going to be a little bit of extra bulk here, so it's not going to look completely perfect, but I think it looks pretty good. All right, we are back with the neckband for the heartless top. As you can see, I've already done the first few steps for the neckband, which is picking up stitches around the entire neck and then knitting 12 rows of 1x1 rib. And at this point, I'm ready to do the fold over step. So what we're going to do for the fold over step, it's going to be pretty similar to how you do the hem at the bottom of the heartless top if you've already done that part. But what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and start this new row. So actually I am starting on the back. So we're going to start this new row. And what we're going to do is we are going to fold over the neckband so it's going to be half of the size that it is now. We're going to attach the live stitches to where we picked up for the neckline. As you can see here, this is my first stitch in my round, and we're just going to go ahead and go to where that stitch was picked up, and we're going to pick up a stitch from there and knit it alongside this stitch here. So I'll show you guys how to do that. We're going to go ahead and look here. This is the column where we have that first stitch. We're going to pick up that first stitch that we picked up and knit. So there we go, we got that stitch. Put it on the left-hand needle, and we're going to knit those 2 together. And then what we're going to do here is we're actually going to combine this sort of hemming method to fold over the neckline with Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind Off. So if you've ever done Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind Off before, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to add in a yarn over in between each stitch. This is just going to make it so that the neckband is stretchier and is easy to get over your head, as opposed to, I did try doing this method without using Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind Off, and it would just make it very, very difficult to get the neckband over your head. So this is going to be really helpful. And then we're going to yarn over. So we're going to continue that same process. We're going to go ahead and look, this is the second stitch, and we're going to look down this column and pick up a stitch from around that same spot where we picked up the stitch for the neckband. Pick that stitch up, knit them together. And once we have these 3 stitches on the right hand needle, we will take those 2 stitches and bring them over the last stitch. And then we're just going to continue the same process. So we're going to yarn over at this point, pick up a stitch, knit 2 stitches together, and then we have 3 stitches on the right hand needle, so we will take 2 of those stitches and put them over. Same process. Yarn over, pick up a stitch, oops, okay, pick up a stitch, knit 2 stitches together, and then we have 3 stitches on the right hand needle, so we will go ahead and take 2 of those and pull them over the last one. You're just going to continue this process around the entire neckband, and I would recommend that maybe when you're like halfway through the neckband, just check and see how stretchy it is. It should be relatively stretchy to the point where you think you'll be able to get it over your head. When you're almost done with the neckband, I would also recommend trying it on again and just making sure that it can comfortably go over your head.